Okay, let's dive straight into the 2026 outlook for European capital markets. Our job here is to really distill what's happening with growth, rates, and systemic risk.
Right. And the entry point for 2026 is, surprisingly calm on the surface.
It is. It's this real paradox. We saw all that normalization in 2025, the ECB cut, inflation's getting near target, credit spreads are tight, equities rallied.
But that's just it. That surface calm is masking some very deep structural undercurrents.
And that's what we want to unpack.
Exactly. We'll sort of guide you through three phases. First, why the old fears of secular stagnation are fading. That's the growth story.
Okay.
Then we'll get into what's causing the yellowing in the markets, which is all about long-term rates. And finally, we'll look inside the black box, the hidden systemic risks.
Let's start with that bright spot then, the growth. The euro area GDP forecast has been upgraded to 1.2%. That's up from 1.0%.
And that's not trivial.
Right.
Critically, the output gap with the U.S. is now at a historical low. So that whole narrative about secular stagnation is, well, it's really receding.
So what's driving it? The sources point to a few growth engines, right? The German fiscal stimulus, for one.
That's a huge one, 127 billion. But there's also strong private sector AI investment. And, those next-gen EU funds are still providing a tailwind in Southern Europe.
In your view, which of those is really doing the heavy lifting here?
I'd say it's the combination of the AI investment and that German fiscal boost. That mix gives you immediate momentum.
Because you're tying fiscal action directly to productivity gains.
Precisely. And that underpins a very favorable environment for corporate funding. Short rates are anchored near the ECB's 2% target, which means real interest rates are effectively zero.
A neutral stance. So it's a great time for companies to issue shorter-term debt.
A very good time.
But that sets up this great dichotomy. If short rates are so anchored and stable, why are long rates rising? This is what the sources call the yellowing of the market. What does that mean?
Yellow is caution. It's a warning light. It signals that something is structurally changing in European debt markets.
And the drivers are what we'd expect. More government spending, quantitative tightening.
Yes, those are part of it. Increased sovereign supply, QT. But the real story, the seismic shock, is on the demand side. It's the Dutch pension pivot.
The shift from defined benefit to defined contribution.
Exactly. That transition basically evaporates a massive, natural, and reliable buyer of super long-dated European bonds. It fundamentally alters the landscape for duration risk.
And the consequence is that governments, the debt management offices, they're now issuing shorter-term debt to avoid those higher costs at the long end.
They are, but it's not a perfect solution. Even with that move, interest payments as a percentage of GDP are still projected to climb across Europe.
Okay, so that brings us to the stop and assess risks, the opacity, the black box.
Right, and the fault line here runs through synthetic risk transfers, or SRTs, and private credit.
Can you just quickly recap what makes SRTs so opaque?
Certainly. An SRT is basically a tool banks use to offload slices of their loan risk to investors. It frees up their regulatory capital.
So the risk doesn't disappear, it just moves.
It moves off the bank's balance sheet and often into the non-bank financial sector, the NBFIs. And tracking exactly where it ends up is the problem.
This is where the IMF warning comes in, isn't it? They talk about a dangerous feedback loop.
A very dangerous one.
Yeah.
The banks sell the risk to NBFIs, but often those same banks are lending to the private credit firms buying that risk protection.
So in a downturn, the NBFIs get margin calls at the exact moment the banks need the protection to work. A huge interlinkage risk.
And the source material is explicit on this. It says, and I'm quoting, "Data unavailability constrains access to a full picture of the risks." That's the black box.
And on top of all that, you have the geopolitical layer. U.S. trade policy, tariffs, Ukraine tensions. These things primarily hurt the small and medium enterprises.
The backbone of the European economy. It's a very clear transmission mechanism for stress that can degrade bank balance sheets, even while equity valuations seem totally discordant with that reality.
So let's tie this all together. What's the takeaway for our listeners?
It's a traffic light system, really. Green for optimism on corporate funding and equities.
But yellow for caution on long-dated bonds and that refinancing risk we talked about.
And a hard red light for vigilance. The opacity in private credit and the exposure of SMEs are non-negotiable risks to watch.
A really clear picture. So what's the final thought you want to leave us with?
It's a question, really. Given that governments are actively shortening their debt maturities to dodge these high long-end costs, what is the realistic ceiling for their interest payments as a percentage of GDP before that cost starts to truly threaten the upgraded 1.2% growth story we started with?